Okay, what I'm going to start doing is just sharing. We have some wonderful photographs of Shirley that I will share on my screen. It's about 10 minutes, and then that'll be enough time for everyone to join. And then we'll get started with the program.
Okay, everybody is going. Can you hear?
No.
Yes, we can hear.
There's something in the way she moves, looks my way or calls my name, that seems to leave this troubled world behind. If I'm feeling down and blue, troubled by some foolish game, she always seems to make me change my mind. I feel fine anytime she's around me now. She's around me now, almost all the time. And if I'm well, you can tell that she's been with me now. She's been with me now quite a long, long time, and I feel fine. Every now and then the things I lean on lose the meaning, and I find myself careening in places where I should not let me go. She has the power to go where no one else can find me, yes, and to silently remind me of the happiness and good times that I know. Well, I said I just got to know them. It isn't what she's got to say, or how she thinks, or where she's been. To me, the words are nice, the way they sound. I like to hear them best that way. It doesn't much matter what they mean. Well, she says they're mostly just to calm me down. I feel fine anytime she's around me now. She's around me now, almost all the time. If I'm well, you can tell that she's been with me now. She's been with me now quite a long, long time. Yes, and I feel fine.
Trouble melts like lemon drops
high above the chimney top, that's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dream that you dare to, oh why can't oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top, that's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dare to, why, oh, why can't
Look at the ivy on the old clanging wall. Look at the flowers and the green grass so tall. It's not a matter of when push comes to shove. It's just the hour on the wings of a dove. That's just warm love. It's just warm love. I dig it when your fancy dressed up in lace. I dig it when you have a smile on your face. This inspiration's got to be on the floor. These invitations got to see it and know it's just warm love. It's just warm love. And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. Warm love. And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. That warm love. To the country we're going, laying life in the sun. You can bring your guitar along. We'll sing some songs and have some fun. The sky is crying and it's time to go home. And we shall hurry to the car from the phone. Sit by the fire and dry out our wet clothes. It's raining outside from the skies up above. Inside it's warm love. Inside it's warm love. And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. That warm love. And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. That warm love. Can you feel it? And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. That warm love. Hey.
familiar road. And although this wave is stringing us along, just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble, it might drag you down. You get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
Well, on behalf of Steve and Kathy and Lisa and Brian and Linda and myself, as well as Shirley's grandchildren, I'd like to welcome you all to this celebration of Shirley's life. You know, with the pandemic that we're all living through, it's been quite disruptive to all of us in many ways, including to those of us who wanted to be in Durban at this time but weren't able to get there. But there's a silver lining in the fact that we can have this kind of a celebration of her life with so many people that were close to our family and close to Shirley, and who are now far-flung and across all over the world. So thank you so much for joining us in celebration. Before we start the program, I'd like to just spend a few minutes telling you what we planned for this morning or this afternoon or evening, depending on where you are, and then also add a couple of technical notes. So what we have in terms of Shirley's immediate family, we have Steve, Kathy, and their daughters, Emmy and Izzy, as well as a few of the closest caregivers of Shirley in Durban. They're at Shirley's home. In Thousand Oaks, California, we have Lisa and Brian. If you could read. In Thousand Oaks, California, we have Lisa and Brian, along with Jenna and Daniel, as well as Simon, who is Shirley's oldest grandson and Steve and Kathy's oldest son. And then here on Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, we have Linda and me and our daughters, Jess and Sarah. As soon as I've finished with the introduction, I'm going to hand over to Steve, who's going to say a few words, and then Lisa and me. And then we're going to go to the grandchildren, and we'll go back to Durban. And Emma and Izzy will say a few words. Then we'll go to Thousand Oaks, and Simon and Jenna will say a few words, as well as Daniel. I think we've got a chance of getting old. And then we'll come back to Martha's Vineyard, and Jess and Sarah will say a few words. And then we'll go back to Durban again. And Kathy, along with Florence, who was Shirley's principal caregiver and a wonderful woman, will say a few words, and then Lisa, and then Linda. And then after that, we're going to open things up for anyone who would like to share memories or thoughts or say anything. And so please, if you would like to do so, either indicate so in the chat function on Zoom, or you can raise your hand. You can raise your hand by going to your name in the participant list and going to the bottom right. Or if you want to shortcut, you can just press Option Y if you have a Mac, or you can press Alt Y if you have a PC. And feel free to raise your hand or mention anything in chat at any point in time, and then we'll come to you once the immediate family have had a chance to talk. Just a couple of other technical notes. You were all muted on entry. If you wouldn't mind, if you're not talking, trying to keep yourselves muted, just so that we keep background noise to a minimum. And then I should mention that we are recording this meeting. So with that said, I'd like to turn this over to my brother Steve to say a few words. Steve, just before you go, I should also mention that beautiful photo slideshow that we were showing at the beginning. We will be screening it again at the end for those of you that might have missed part of it, or others of you that might want to see it again. But over to you, Steve.
Pete, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Steve.
That's great. And thanks, everybody. It's quite wonderful and quite extraordinary and sad in its way, but there's an underlying happiness, I think, being together in this way. Of course, that show, Peter and all, brought tears and smiles all the way through. Let me try and keep myself composed. I will read this short text. Our dear family and friends, we're sitting in subtropical Durban in the home that Shirley loved so much, and where many of you have spent time. It is a source of great comfort that Mom died peacefully here, by the garden she so enjoyed, that was laid out years ago with Ted, and which we continue to enjoy. Today, 3 weeks ago, Mom came home. Someone can mute, thank you. Today, 3 weeks ago, Mom came home from Entebbe Hospital after a difficult few weeks, especially in a time of COVID, as Peter was saying, as we all know. But she'd benefited from excellent medical and nursing care. Though very ill, she returned to a wonderfully caring environment where she spent her last 2 weeks. We felt Mom was getting stronger, but knew she was ill, indeed most unwell. And last Saturday, 20th of June, Mom slipped away. Mom knew years ago she was losing her memory and never disguised how difficult this was. I remember, but 3 years ago, sitting on her bed as she reflected on the Career Mentoring Award she was to receive from the International Neuropsychology Society. And there was a slide of the Paul Satz Award. She said, "You know, Steve, I wake up in the morning and have no thoughts in my head." While harsh for anyone, this was amplified for a person whose career was based on deep understanding of the brain and behavior. Shirley continued working into her 80s, close on 10 years after losing her beloved Ted. Indeed, had she been able, she'd have chosen to work until her last breath, contributing, as Rabbi Zechary put it on Monday, as a giver all her life. I loved entering her room to find the bed strewn with journals and newspapers, some read and some still to be opened. While there's much to say of Mom and Dad's partnership that lasted, as many, if not all of you know, well over 50 years, what stands out for me is the unqualified support that Ted gave to Shirley towards realizing her aspirations over quite a long working life. Though she could not stop herself saying, "Had I started sooner, I'd have done much more." In fact, as a high school student, I recall Mom working anywhere and everywhere, brown folder open, filled with scribbled notes, and certainly that's how I learned to work. Mom and Dad's partnership was the anchor to navigating life after the loss of our dear brother Yoni. Soon after, Mom started her internship in clinical psychology, which very clearly provided the space, the time, to help to come to terms with losing a beloved son. In 1987, Shirley spent time at the Rusk Institute in New York, mentored by Yehuda Ben Yishai and their team. Without doubt, this experience was a turning point that profoundly influenced her future work in the rehabilitation of traumatic brain injury. As I now see it, the Rusk experience was formative to her professional approach. She was an integrator, a synthesizer, and for her, interdisciplinary science, sensitive to culture, was essential. It was essential both to understand the brain, but as if not more, as a foundation for the teamwork required in effective rehabilitation after traumatic head injury. These were approaches that imbued her community work in Durban, at Jewel House, Masada, and Dune Village, and that have also influenced Kathy and me in our work along the life course, aging, cognition, and mental health. How fitting then for Mom to return home 3 weeks ago to a care team of Florence, Sam, and Kanye sitting here with us, Ronnie, her family doctor, Reshma, her physiotherapist, a team which together embodied those qualities central to Mom's lifelong practice, and who ensured, I believe, that her last days in the home she shared with Ted closed the circle on her work, her family and friends, and her life among us. And if I can end, so much I've touched on was made possible by the great love and support and interest of all of you joining us today. Thank you all. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks so much, Steve. Lisa?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us and for being with Shirley. It's enormously touching, and I too will read and hopefully be able to share with you the thoughts and reflections that I've written down. During her accomplished 87 years, Mom, Shirley, lived a full life with broad interests, thoroughly engaged in her work with her community and above all, her family. As I read and reread the loving emails and notes reflecting on her and her life sent by you, her family and friends across the globe, I'm struck by the consistency of the sentiment shared. Intelligent, kind and compassionate, beautiful, deep love for her family, and a genuine friend to everyone, taking any newcomer under her wing. She was deliberate and fortunate to have deep and meaningful friendships filled with interest, love, and support, forming an incredible network, first in Durban and then across the world. The relationships fostered permeated her children as we adopted and were adopted by you all too. We treasure those friendships, which will continue in perpetuity. As might be expected at a time like this, I find my thoughts splitting between treasured experiences and insights Mom imparted, not just from what she said, but primarily from what she did. You may know this, but she was a hedonist at heart, from a passion for movies to books she read and the food she chose, ice cream. She also had an uncanny ability to know what to say when and offer sound bites of wisdom. I remember regular family and friend dinners, primarily at 136 Johnson Road, Sundays swimming and playing at Addington Beach, complete with Thomas's chicken and gravy and crisps for lunch. Family and friend holidays in Ramsgate and the Drakensberg Mountains, solidifying memories at favorite places and always exploring new ones, fostering a love with the tranquility of nature and its ability to heal and restore. I remember orchestral concerts, which at the time I protested and for which I'm now grateful. Even our regular detours after school to the corner store so that she could pick up milk, which inevitably also included chocolate-covered marshmallows. She was a nurturing force wherever I showed the slightest interest or talent, somehow both supporting me and driving me to be my best. She also had a clear personal principle to be present at every family milestone she could, regardless of the effort it entailed. And she did this all while developing a fulfilling and accomplished career. She loved seeing students in the streets, and although would confide she had perfected a smile of knowing when she had no idea who many were, given her large class sizes. As we drove to school, she sometimes selected the university route by mistake, immersed in her own thoughts. And I remember clearly getting into her car one day after school to be greeted by an intoxicating smell for which she apologized, explaining it was the brain. Apparently the formalin-filled container in the boot or trunk had overflowed with the odor wafting through the car. She formed independent relationships with each of her children, including our partners and her grandchildren, and was very deliberate in this. I sometimes wondered if Mom was so excited we were on our way to Durban in anticipation of the salacious novels Brian had so intuitively selected at her request, and the wonderful, relaxed conversations during breakfast and other times, often in her bedroom. When she preferred to stay in bed, she'd quietly use the mirrored cupboards to see a full view of the lounge where her grandchildren were just hanging out, watching TV or playing together, cherishing that warm, safe, homely environment she and Dad created and that we cherish. Dad was her perfect balance, her stability when she doubted herself, which was more often than you'd imagine. Yoni's death was a major wrench. As she battled through it, she was determined that it bring us closer, not further apart, and quickly became the navigator for the family. She had a keen desire for her children to be friends and support each other. She liked nothing better than seeing us engaging together, running, sharing a story, a laugh. And I know this, as she said it explicitly on multiple occasions. She found great joy in her descendants being friends, working together, supporting each other, and having fun. She has taught us well. Mom was my confidant, my rock, my advisor, my friend. I take so much from her, what she said and told me, but even more, what she did. She was so very determined, combined with a quiet grace. She never settled in her career until she found her passion, which she did, doing pioneering work in the field of neuropsychology. She provided a wonderful example to women at a time when more so than today, it was a man's world. She qualified, then requalified, driven by her passion. She taught me not to settle, and if you want to change something, it's never too late. We video chatted most days for the past several years, and I'll always remember how she would light up and brighten my day when she answered. She will remain my North Star, and I'll be constantly channeling my inner Shirley, including her counsel that she is always with me, even when she is not physically present. One of my last in-person memories of Mom is from our January 2020 trip in Durban. We were sitting on the veranda at the Oyster Box Hotel, together with Sam and with Florence and the family having lunch with blankets around our shoulders, the monkey stealing food from one of the guest rooms above, and Mom beaming happily at having her family with her and the audacity of the monkeys. About a 5-minute walk from our house is a network of trails. The first hill rises steeply up from the shade onto the crest of the contour. We call this first hill Cardiac Hill, aptly describing the slope of the ascent. Since Ted, Dad, died 13 years ago, shortly after we moved to Westlake Village, the top of that hill with the early morning sun and sky just streaking over has been my dad place. Here is where we've talked and hugged, and I imagine him there with Yoni too. Towards the end of the hike, as the slope takes me downhill back home, I've had the privilege of talking with Mom on FaceTime. Earlier this week, as I braved my first hike on that trail, I've traversed probably thousands of times. As I came to the top of Cardiac Hill, and the overcast day meant I couldn't see the hill in the distance that had been Dad's hill. In my mind, it was a private moment as Dad welcomed Mom, the two of them reunited again with Yoni nearby. This is now Mom and Dad's hill. They were, and always will be, a single unit with two independent voices. She died as she lived, on her terms, and fulfilling her desire not to be a burden to others. I will miss her enormously, realizing this is the juxtaposition of the very special person she was and my good fortune to have her as my mother. While the flame has gone out, her light will shine forever. She will live on within us, our friendships, what she inspired, and how we love, support, and enjoy each other going from here on. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Lee. You know, a little over 10 years ago, I turned 50, and Linda decided that I should run a marathon to commemorate it. And she found out that the Dublin Marathon was on the exact day of my 50th birthday. It was Monday, the 26th of October, 1959. So she told me to register, which I did. It was not that long after my dad died. So we were not used to sharing and celebrating major milestones without him. But we got on a flight from Boston to Dublin the Friday before the marathon, landed in Dublin. We took a taxi to our hotel, which was a little boutique hotel opposite St. Stephen's Square, which is a lovely part of the city and very close to the start of the marathon. And Lynn and I wanted to check in, have a quick shower, and then get out because we wanted to stretch our legs after the flight, and I needed to finalize my registration for the marathon. So we did that. We got into our room, we showered, walked through the lobby, and as I looked across the room, there in the corner in a red high-back chair was my mom, Shirley. It was a total surprise, and we had a wonderful weekend together. This was her first major trip after my dad died, and she flew on her own through London to Dublin to spend the weekend with us together. During the marathon, she joined Linda in crisscrossing the city to all of the spectator points. And that evening, we had a lovely dinner at what was then Dublin's only one-star Michelin restaurant. I do have to say it was a wonderful weekend, but the marathon itself was quite exhausting. Some years before that is another story that I remember. It was in 1964. And my dad was early in his academic career and was on sabbatical. He's spending the year in London to further his studies. I must have been 4 or 5 at the time. And my parents enrolled me in some sort of a preschool. I don't recall much about it, except I do remember that there was a large sand pit or sandbox, and I think I spent most of my time in it. And we had to commute from where we were living to the preschool by underground. So every day, my mom and I would get on the tube and commute, and then we would commute back. Now, as a child, I was painfully shy. I was pathologically shy. I think today there would be some clinical diagnosis for it and probably some sort of drug therapy. But my mom had decided that this was her time to try and get inside my head. And so she dubbed the time that we would spend on the train together as our private time. And she tried so hard on all the day after day after day to talk to me about things that might be intimate and about what my feelings were. I don't think she ever succeeded, but I do remember tremendously enjoying those rides. And I have to give her credit for the enormous effort that she put in. Now, I tell these stories because after the last week or so since Mom passed away, I've been trying to remember those moments that really stand out in our time together, and in particular, those that have brought the most joy. And I've been inspired by so many of the stories that we've been told or written to by those of you who knew her well and related them to us. And thank you so much for doing that. And what I was struck by was the following. All of us had such different experiences of her, including as growing up, as Lisa said. You know, Steve, Lisa, and I had tremendously different experiences growing up, as well as our brother Yoni. I think his might have been the closest to mine. But somehow in the stories, there's a set of common themes that came through strongly. And I thought I would read you a few of them that are perhaps most representative of describing the types of values that tended to underline her behavior. So here goes. I first met her when, as a 21-year-old, I moved to Durban as a young bride. South Africans, and Durbanites in particular, were quite different from Americans, and I found many of them aloof and quite daunting. The Beer Tollman family was a formidable setup in those days. I found your parents both refreshing, charming, warm, and easy to talk to. They were different, and we always felt at ease with them. And here's another. We were both so fond of your mom and dad. As I was growing up, they were two of my favorite uncles and aunts. Your mom was always so interesting to be around. Unlike some members of the Greta family, your parents were totally unfazed by the fact that my bride wasn't Jewish. They took people in life as they were, and we spent many happy occasions with them in the years after that. And then here's one from someone who now runs a major science and social sciences center that's headquartered in Europe. She was my favorite lecturer during my time at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She really was. Of all the courses I followed, hers have stayed with me. She was engaging, warm, generous in sharing her knowledge and a passion for her work. And then finally, your mom was a remarkable person with steely courage. While many of us cowered behind our doors complaining about the nationalists, now the nationalists were the party in power in South Africa at the time, upholding apartheid, and we merely were speaking liberal, your mom was a member of the Black Sash, and from what I recall, she acted liberal. And the Black Sash was a community of women opposed to the racist policies of the South African government at the time. Now, of course, it's never quite that simple because people are complicated. And I love the expression from Alfred Adler, the pioneering psychotherapist, who said that the only normal people in the world are the people who we don't know very well. Now, I can assure you, as kids growing up, we knew my mom very, very well. She was fiercely independent and highly determined. She feared dependency almost more than anything else. And so she was determined to forge for herself a separate, successful professional career. And she did so later in life, starting out, than most people did. I don't think that she quite had the confidence that she projected. And she, of course, took the death of our brother Yoni very hard, as we always did, and it stayed with her throughout her life. I also don't think she was quite as accepting of those closest to her, her nuclear family, as she was of her broader network. But she really did find solace in her work and her career. It was her comfort zone, it was her safe space. And today there are thousands of people who benefited from the lectures she gave and carry with them the learnings that she imparted to him. And there are scores of patients whose lives have been literally transformed by the work that my mom did with them. In her latter years and in more recent times, she fought very hard as she felt parts of her independence slipping away. She was determined to stay living independently and to live in her own home until the end of her days, and I'm very glad that she did. If she fell down in certain places, I think it's because she tried too hard. Here are two more quotes. I remember your mum always, with her silver hair, accentuating her beautiful features, highlighting her twinkling eyes, a perfect landscape for her musical laugh. And she was quite simply a wonderful person. Thank you. Now we're going to go back to Durban. We're going to hear from Shirley's grandchildren, and we're going to start with Emma and Izzy.
Hi, everybody. I am Emma, the younger sister to Simon, and this is my sister, my little sister Isabel, daughters of Kathy and Steve. Throughout my life, I thought my Granny Shirley was so cool, intelligent, and beautiful. I would put my little feet in her elegant shoes and clip on her distinctive earrings with a crooked grin. I loved to emulate my gran, and I loved climbing into bed to snuggle with her and Grandpa when I was little. I loved the precious time I had with both of them as I grew older. I had 4 loving and admirable grandparents, and there was something uniquely special about my relationship with Granny Shirley. She was here for my childhood, my teenagehood, and all the way of my adulthood up to today, well, last week. And in the latter, when I was old enough to truly have a conscious relationship with a grandparent, she was the only one who was still living. And she lived on for many more years. It goes without saying that Granny had a brilliance in her field of neuropsychology. She had a special way of helping anyone who crossed her path carve their own paths with bolder strokes and greater freedom. Granny strove to look closer at the unconscious ideas of the self we built, the unconscious commitments we made to others, so that we could become more truthful versions of who we really are, not who we'd been told we should be. Granny Shirley's passing represents a great generational shift in my family. While I know my grandmother prepared me for this transition, I certainly feel sad, and there is a part of me that never felt ready and perhaps would never feel ready to go on without the hand of my grandmother. I know that she is still with me, and that we will continue our relationship on either side of life. So tenderly, I think of my later conversations and how delicately Granny Shirley approached the uncertainty of death, and how I assured her that it would be okay. I am so proud of my Granny for leading by such an extraordinary example, by inspiring goodness in all of her descendants and nurturing a deep curiosity of life and all its conscious and unconscious phenomenon. I love you, Granny. You are my role model and have been ever since I was a little girl. How lucky I am to have such a remarkable role model who lived such an extraordinary life. May you rest peacefully and in great love. Thank you.
There's only one thing I'd like to say. As Dad was saying earlier, you know, she recognized as she forgot things and as her sort of dementia kicked in. And the last lucid thing I remember her saying to me, and I think it is the last thing that she said to me. It wasn't the last time I saw her in person, it was the time before. And it was as we were leaving. The most beautiful thing she said to me, "I'll never forget who you are. And I'm so lucky to have that beautiful, in the way that she said it, with me. And just that I remember it is so special. So thank you, and thank you, Granny. Pete, back to you.
Thanks so much, Izan M. Let's go to Thousand Oaks. Simon, Jenna, and Daniel.
So I'm Simon, the eldest of Shirley's grandchildren, Steve and Kathy's son. There's a ton Shirley was and still is to me. Some of these things are easier to distill into shareable ideas than others. Here are three that are. First, she was partner to Ted. They're a unit before individuals to me. I love the Ted and Shirl aesthetic, the way they carried themselves, the people they were to others, and so much more. They provided love and security and spread joy in a way that would influence the academic and professional interests I chose to pursue years later. They shared their loves of art and science. My fondest memories of them are from 136 Chelmsford Road. How fortunate I consider myself for being a product and beneficiary of their partnership. Then, she's someone whose professional trajectory was non-linear, but who got where she was going in the end. She was not well-to-do growing up, but excelled in school. She was then not permitted to take up her university mathematics scholarship out of high school. Her father, dear Jack Jacoby, considered this charity and beneath the dignity of the family. Instead, she qualified as a pharmacist at a technical college and went to work as one in the family business. Later in life, having had children, she got her chance at university and departed this world a professor of neuropsychology. Not that my life has paralleled hers in all these respects, but my path too has been nonlinear. When in doubt, I draw strength from her journey and related triumphs. And finally, she was someone whose point of view I took terribly seriously. Perhaps wisdom is the inevitable outcome of surviving an unfathomable tragedy. I mean surviving both literally and figuratively, referring to the loss of her son and my uncle Yoni. I know she carried the pain of this always. The productivity with which she carried the burden gave her great credibility in my mind. We'd lost pieces of Shirley before she died last weekend. Ted, her strength, physical and mental. I don't feel she was ready for her age to manifest with quite the force that it did when it did. Indeed, for as long as she was able to communicate it, there was always another trip abroad and publication on her radar. It's testament to her lust for life. And in that vein, let's reflect on our own lives. And where there are opportunities to live more, let's take one in Shirley's honor. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, I'm Jenna. So, my granny was a beautiful, strong, resilient, smart, caring, and loving person who always put others before herself. Ever since I can remember, she's been one of my greatest role models, and I truly aspire to be everything she was. I know that through her line of work and by just One in particular that I can remember very clearly was when I was around 5 or 6 years old. Our whole family decided to take a trip to Cape Town. One specific morning, all the adults, along with my cousins, decided to go on a hike, which I was not too thrilled about. So instead, my granny offered to stay with me. Once everyone was gone, she took me to the mall and we went to the most American store there, Build-A-Bear. I'd been begging my parents for months to buy me one of those bears, and they had always refused. So granted, my granny went and got me one herself. When the rest of our family came back from the hike, not only did they find me with a new stuffed animal, but we had gotten clothes, roller skates, and a leash to go along with it. My selfish granny did not take me out to get the bear because I just wanted a new toy. She took me to get it just so that she could be there to witness the smile on my face and to make me happy. That is just the type of person she was, always putting others before herself and would do anything to make someone else happy. I find that in many ways, my granny and I are very similar. We both love sleeping, laying in bed, eating ice cream and candies, and reading trashy romance novels. I believe that in some ways, it was my gran that really started my love for reading. When I was around 8 years old, my granny had come to visit for my brother's birth. When she came, she had brought me a book that was called You Read to Me, I'll Read to You. Every night during that visit, we would spend hours reading short stories in that book together. Her reading one line and me reading another. It is small moments like these I will remember forever. Just as my mom is my best friend, I know her mom is her best friend, and one day I hope to be my daughter's best friend. I feel honored and so lucky to have been blessed with the family I've been given, and a lot of that is thanks to my grandma. I love her so much, and each day I hope to make her proud and carry on her legacy.
Hi, my name's Daniel. 3 things I remember I loved doing with my granny. 1, watching Mr. Bean. 2, lying together in bed. 3, reading books together. Remember my granny.
All right, I'm Jess. I'm Peter and Linda's daughter and a sibling of Sarah. This is how I think of Granny Shirley. Bright smile, contagious laugh, warm attention, consistent support and love. When I think of her, she is smiling, nodding, saying to me, "Yes, I think that must be right." Granny Shirley always demonstrated curiosity, wanting to know what I was up to, my plans, my goals. She showed me that my words, my thoughts, and my feelings were important. We shared conversations about psychology, feminism, justice, ethics, irreverent humor, and much more. Whenever we talked, it felt as though time might as well have stopped. We were in our own world. Our thoughts were moving things forward and nothing else mattered in that moment. During our deep diving discussions, she validated me and I felt so connected to her. She showed me that my perspective is valuable, and in turn, she helped me to believe it myself. I feel fortunate and grateful to have a grandma like Shirley. To be on the other side of Granny's, "Yes, that must be right." You feel heard and seen. This is a vital gift from an older person to a younger person finding her voice and conviction. On our last trip to South Africa in December, she shared her wisdom and this advice in earnest. She said she knows I'm going to do great things. She said the most important things are you must do what you love and you must believe in yourself. To have a grandma like Shirley, it's a blessing. She is alive in me, in my family, in everyone who knew her. She's not going anywhere. And we'll play musical chairs for a second.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm Jess's sister and Peter and Linda's other daughter. Gran had an implicit feminism about her that has made her a really important role model for me. When I was growing up, every time I would see Gran, she would talk about her work. I was interested in it, and she would talk to me about it in great detail, even though I was too young to have the background to understand it. On one visit to Durban, I got to go to her office, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, even though I'm pretty sure I just sat in the waiting room the whole time. Whenever I saw or talked to Gran, she would ask me about what I was doing, and I wanted to do interesting things so that I'd have something to tell her. Gran made it cool for me to have interests and to pursue them. She would ask me as though she, an accomplished professor, was my peer, and as though my middle school interests, accomplishments, and thoughts were as valuable as anyone's. 3.5 years ago, a year and a half after Gran was involved in a car crash and I was involved in a bicycle crash, Gran and I both got very sick in the Drakensberg Mountains and spent that portion of the vacation resenting the family members who had brought us there. I remember sitting on the chair next to her bed while she lay in it, holding her hand as we giggled about firing our doctors. I think for both of us, this was a time when it felt like other people were in control of much of our lives. She had begun to cognitively decline and I had suffered a bad head injury. But for both of us, this was also a time when we knew that we had someone in our corner.
Thank you. Those are Shirley's 7 grandchildren. And now we'll go back to Durban to hear from Kathy.
Hi everyone. I first met Shirley when I was 23 years old, newly in love with her son Steve, and the meeting felt a big deal for me. Shirley, with Ted, quickly absorbed me into the family as one of their own. Her daughter is how Shirley would introduce me. I'm not sure I ever heard her refer to me as a daughter-in-law. Shirley and I were both students when we met. I was finishing my medical studies and Shirley her PhD. The similarity ended there. I observed Shirley's life with awe. She navigated her multiple roles with grace, starting with her weekly crack of dawn visit to the market to ensure the freshest fruit and vegetables, then work all morning, lunch at Granny Ann, then work all afternoon, and evening conversations peppered with new ideas for therapy or anxiety about patients' progress. She sought and found balance with Ted's unwavering guidance and support. Steve spoke about Shirley's professional life and the passion with which she brought her training and her expertise to serve troubled minds and injured brains. I will reflect instead on Shirley as an intuitive healer, how she rendered calm, strong, and effective support, judging when I needed it, never intrusive. Like a ballroom dancer, Shirley would know when to step back and when to embrace again. And I expect many of you will have enjoyed her gentle care at times that you needed it. Because of the parallel with our purpose today, I have been reflecting on Shirley's support for me over the long years of my own mother's decline and her death. Shirley stood by me during those years, solid and secure, resolute and constant. She was my healer as I worked through that loss. And so I feel blessed these past few weeks to have been able to play a small role with Steve and with Florence, Sam, and Kanye in bringing Shirley some comfort and much love here in her home in Durban. And I'll now like to introduce you to Florence, who's sitting here next to me, and who of all of us over the last few years has spent the most time with Shirley in conversation with her. And Florence will share some thoughts with us.
My special greetings to everyone. I thank you all for giving me this lovely opportunity to say a few words about my Mamala. I've got so much to tell about her, but I decided to say one thing that she would have wanted me to say to you all. She really appreciates you all, the support you gave her, the love, especially the everyday phone calls she was receiving. You all play a wonderful role into her life. Her life was changing day by day, and she knew that. But because you made it so easier for her, that was the reason for her to keep smiling every day. She knew that you were all there every time, and that was making her comfortable and feeling safe. She may be gone, but she will always remain present in our hearts and thoughts. As she has done everything to change some of our lives, and she did everything to protect us all, especially her family. She just wanted you all to have only a good thoughts about her. Thank you all. And she always wanted me to make sure that you all know this. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Florence. Brian.
Hi, everybody. So Shirley and I had very similar personality traits. And because of this, I think we bonded early on. And like Kathy, she always introduced me as her son, as Kathy mentioned that she was introduced as her daughter. Lisa's very much like her dad, and Shirley and I seem to be the polar opposites of some of those personality traits. What to read, what movie to see, what to eat, were the things that were important to us at certain times. How the books were stacked on the table or how the pillows on the couch were arranged were not necessarily our priorities. For a few years, people have mentioned about the genres of reading she would like. It was I who was sent on missions to get those books. And so I learned a lot about that genre, where she would always say that she was always bored of reading educational journals and he needed something a little more interesting to read. You'll hear people mention how important family was to Shirley, and I was no exception to that. Quite a few years ago, when she heard that I was having some medical issues, here in Los Angeles, she insisted on jumping on a plane to come over here to LA to find out exactly what was going on for herself. And during her time here, I remember her insisting that it was I who needed to go out to go for walks around the park, and she would come with me. So it's funny how the tides have changed over the years. But in that time, she was really there for me and the family. My favorite times when we would visit Shirley in South Africa were the mornings. Usually Lisa would be exercising early or working, and the kids would be sleeping or most likely watching TV. On these mornings, I would take my favorite breakfast of Milo cereal into her room to eat, and then we would have little chats. So during these chats, she would share stories of teaching at the university. She would have family gossip, or she would give psychological explanation as to why some family or our kids may be behaving in a certain way. She is also amazed and impressed that I was able to put up with her daughter's breakneck daily pace of things, of what to do, and wondered how I did it. So as I was going through some of the photos that I'm going to share on my desktop for a sec, as I was going through some of the photos, one really stood out to me. And it was, I don't know, oh, hold on. One was this one. One was this one, because Shirley loved Durban, and the way she was looking out of the city in this photo just reminded me of all the times that she would just explain how much she loved Durban. And she really, really wanted people, it was her desire, I think, that if people all over the world could experience and know Durban like her, the world would have been perfect. She really, really loved talking about her home and her life there. So over the years, her bedroom became her refuge. And as kind of Lisa mentioned, there were mirrors on our closets. And so as she was lying on her bed, she would look through those mirrors, and those mirrors would go into the family room. And I always thought this was kind of like sort of a window. It was like a window into the world for her in her later years. And so one example of this is when we were sitting there eating together was we were eating breakfast, and we would look at the mirror here, and we would see our young son Daniel there watching TV, and most likely watching Mr. Bean, like Jenna mentioned. But when she looked through this mirror, the smile and the light on her face, she was memorized by it, and it made her so happy. It just really brought such joy to her to watch, just all this energy that was happening on and around her. So I don't know what else to say. There's so much to miss about Shirley, her house, and her family trips. And I'm sad that Jen and Daniel can't get to know her a little bit more. Thanks. I'm gonna stop sharing. Hold on.
Hi, I'm Linda, Peter's wife, for those of you who don't know me. And I guess as the caboose, the last one of the family to speak, some of what I'm going to say is a repetition in a sense, but at the same time, it's a reflection of the parallel experiences we all had with Shirley. I first met Shirley back in May of 1982. I was just 20 and Shirley was 49, 10 years younger than I am now. That first evening, Ted and Shirl took us to a fabulous comedic ballet at the Cape Town Civic Centre. They both loved cultural events and whenever possible took us to ballets, plays and pantomimes, even if we just got off a flight from the United States. I think we might even have fallen asleep in Serafina. At our first meeting, I was struck by her incredible beauty and elegance, her high cheekbones and deep green eyes. I still remember that she was wearing a stylish long green woolen coat, one that I coveted for years until it was more mothballs than actual coat. She had a way about her that was so different from other women, other mothers of that time. She dressed differently and behaved differently. By that, I mean she had a style and a way about her that was unique, Her eyes sparkled with intelligence, and when she smiled, they smiled too. From the get-go, she and Ted were so engaging. They were genuinely interested in me and what I was doing. They had a way of interacting with younger people that was so different from other adults that I'd met. Maybe the fact that they were both academics, actively teaching students at the University of Natal, that enabled them to engage with younger people in a manner that I'd not been privy to before. On my first trip to Durban, she personally took me on a tour of their favorite Durban haunts. They were both so proud, as Brian had said, to show off the city they loved. We walked down the narrow lanes in downtown Durban, crowded with colorful Indian shops and street hawkers. We visited the Indian market. I can still feel the bustle of the crowds of people, the vibrant colors, and the wonderful aromatic smells. In those days, as Kathy mentioned, she would wake up at 5 or 6 a.m. to head off to the fruit and vegetable market before heading out for a full day of work. Shirley and Ted welcomed Kathy and me into the family as daughters, and years later, when Brian joined the family, he was welcomed as a son. As both of them have mentioned before, we were never introduced as daughters or son-in-law, always as daughters and son, in a way that was so encompassing and welcoming. I was able to engage with Shirley in a way I hadn't been able to with my own mom. She was interested in aspects of my life that my own mother just hadn't been able to relate to. Shirley and Ted surprised Peter by flying to Boston for his 40th. Neither of them ever had wanted to miss a party. I drove them from the airport straight to his office. His secretary and I had coordinated that he would come down to the lobby via the elevator, supposedly to have lunch with a colleague. You can't believe the surprise and delight on Peter's face when he came out of the elevator to find me sitting in the lobby with both of his dear parents. It had always been Shirley and Ted, and when Ted died 13 years ago, suddenly there was just Shirley. She immediately had to fill the huge role as the matriarch of the family, and solo became the glue keeping the extended family together. When Peter turned 50, he and I flew to Dublin so he could run the Dublin Marathon on his actual 50th birthday. Once again, Peter was overwhelmed to find his mother waiting for us in the hotel lobby. Shirley so wanted to be with us to celebrate this milestone, and nothing, not even not having a hotel room, was going to stop her. As you can imagine, thousands of people had traveled to Dublin for the marathon, and hotel rooms were at a premium. Fortunately, one opened up at the last minute at our hotel, and she didn't have to share a bed with us. Mile 1 of the marathon passed right in front of the small hotel where we were staying, so we were able to see Peter as he ran past. The race was like a figure 8, and Shirley was determined to walk with me to mile 14 so we could see Peter run past again. This meant her walking a distance of approximately 2 to 3 miles. The closer we got, the slower she walked, as she was absolutely exhausted. But she was determined, and we made it there seconds before Peter ran past. Thankfully, we were able to flag down a pedicab who agreed to take us back to the finish line so that we could see Peter run by yet again. She was so proud of him and so happy to be there with us. Her legacy and Ted's legacy is that they instilled in all of us the importance of family, the importance of the bonds and love that tie us all together. We are blessed that despite the huge distances that separate us all and the many years that we've been living far apart, that we have all continued to see one another at least annually. And as a result of this, despite growing up in different parts of the world, the cousins all know each other extremely well. The members of our generation are now the heads of the family. We will continue the tradition of annual family gatherings so that these bonds continue to strengthen and grow. I was truly blessed to meet Peter and to become a member of this wonderful family 35 years ago. In fact, it's our 35th wedding anniversary on Tuesday, and so 35 years ago we got married at 136 Chelmsford Road in their beautiful garden. No words can express the loss we all feel at Shirl's passing. Shirl, we will always cherish your memory, and you live on in all of our hearts. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. All of Shirley's descendants have had an opportunity to share thoughts, and we'd love to invite any of you who would like to share your thoughts as well, and feel free to indicate so on the chat or raise your hand on the participant list. Leslie Ann, I believe that you had raised your hand.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Peter. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Shirley's niece. Shirley and I shared a joke every time we spoke. We shared one particular joke. I would tell Shirley that she was my favourite auntie, and she absolutely was my favourite auntie, but the joke was that she was my only auntie that I'd ever had. But like all good jokes, there was a truth in it, because we both knew that even if I had a million aunties, she would have been my favourite auntie. And when I tried to think of one thing to just sum up Shirley, there are so many wonderful things you could say, but I thought of her generosity, her great generosity of spirit and generosity of kindness, and how much she shared of herself with everybody. And I think a lot of people have talked about that in so many different ways. And I thought about today. Today, 15 years ago, was my dad's 70th birthday. And she flew all the way to London for his birthday lunch. And 9 years ago, she flew all the way to Sydney for my son Daniel's bar mitzvah. Now, when she flew to Sydney, I started thinking more about this. And I started thinking that most things I could think about with Shirley came in twos. So when she flew to Sydney for Daniel's bar mitzvah, my mum, her sister, flew too. So here are two Jacoby sisters in Sydney. And Sydney is a bit like a shtetl these days. And so suddenly all these people who'd known the Jacoby sisters in Pretoria, from Pretoria, wanted to see them. And a group of them held a lovely tea for Shirley and Tish, my mum. And for me, this was a fabulous opportunity to try and get some gossip on what these two young women had been like back in Pretoria, and to try and get some stories. But all I could get people to tell me was that the Jacoby sisters had been the two most beautiful sisters in all of Pretoria. That was all they would share with me. And when I thought of that, I sort of thought of Shirley, and I thought she was absolutely beautiful in two ways. We've all talked about how she was so beautiful on the outside, but also on the inside. And again, there could be so many examples of how she was beautiful on the inside, but I've really been reflecting on some of the lovely things that Florence has sent to me in the last few days, because I think, you know, all of us can be nice in front of crowds, but it's behind those closed doors that I think often you see the real essence of somebody. And Florence has just shared with me so many of the ways in which Shirley was just made it so easy for Florence to care for her. And even at the hardest times was smiling and just trying to make life easy for everybody. So I really sort of think of her in that way. And then there's so many other ways in which I can think of her as to family and friends. She, obviously the family was so important to her, but with friends as well, she never stopped giving. I could go on, you know, we've heard a lot about two things, like her incredible passion for her work, but her incredible passion for having fun as well, you know. And I have my whiskey here because when I think of Shirley, I also wanted to enjoy a scotch, because much as she enjoyed her work, she enjoyed all of life's fine pleasures as well. So there are lots of twos when I think of Shirley, but what really stands out for me when I think of her is one singular thing, and that was her absolute love for her nuclear family, for Ted and all her children and her grandchildren. And when she spoke of all of you, the thing that I thought about, which I've again heard so many people say, was that the twinkle in her eye and the twinkle in her voice. And I think you all, in so many ways, really made her so happy in a way that nothing else could. And so finally, when I, you know, was honored enough to be able to witness her funeral on Monday, it felt fitting to see her being laid next to rest to her beloved Yoni and Ted. And so just wanted to wish you all long life and thank you for this opportunity to say something.
Thanks so much, Leslie. And I should say there's a extra commitment comes from people like you in Australia, because it's like getting on to 3 in the morning right now. Would anyone else like to share a thought or memory? Jessica?
I think Myra might have raised her hand.
I did.
Ah, you're on mute. There we go. Thank you.
You're on, Jess.
No,
I'm Myra Monk, Shirley's niece and very close friend. Shirley was only 10 years older than me, and we became very close in Durban and used to make trips together to the Indian market every week, which was such a special time for me. We shared sad times and we shared many happy times. We were always together for all the Yom Tovim, Pesach, Rosh Hashanah. Our families were very close, and Shirley will always be loved and respected, and was such a special lady. See her smiling face. I miss her, and I'm fortunate to have had times, very good times spent with her. I'm lucky that Lisa and Peter at least are in America, because us cousins are spread all over the world. I'll always remember her, and I wish my cousins all long life. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mara. We value you as well. Jess.
Hi. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted, yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm Jessica Bear. I am the daughter of Alec and Shirley, the late Alec and Shirley Newmark, who were very good friends with Ted and Shirley. My dad, Alec, and Ted met in kindergarten, so the story goes, and grew up together and attended summer camps together where they met. Ted met Shirley, Alec met Shirley, my mom, and they each as a couple went on to have 4 children. And I was closest in age to Yoni and to Lisa. I've always regarded Shirley as somewhat like a second mother to me, and Lisa is therefore my sister. And we speak of that often, Lisa and I. It was fitting this morning, I felt, when I woke up and saw rain. It never rains in LA. And there have been very significant points in my life where it's rained. And I just felt it very fitting this morning. It felt like the sky was simultaneously grieving and nurturing at the same time. And that was very comforting for me to wake up to. I wrote some thoughts down last night and sent them to the family, and I'm going to embellish on them a little bit. First of all, that photo montage was just a feast for the eyes. I absolutely loved it for obvious reasons. And one of my favorite moments actually was Stephen wearing denim hot pants. Shirley was kind, she was gentle, she was so wise, and she was beautiful to the point of being regal. Also incredibly strong. Shirley called me darling. Shirley gave me river beads, and she and Ted gave me little Demi-Tasse coffee cups. Shirley gave me confidence in my work at a time where I really needed it. She sent me my first referral when I was about 24 years old and just entering into private practice. She sent me my first client. And 30 years later, last spring, I went to visit that client in Paris. And that client and his mom both asked after Shirley. Shirley was someone whose intellect and therapeutic skill I was in awe of as a speech therapist. Shirley taught me how to stay looking fresh through a full-day conference. And if anyone wants to know the secret, I'll trade it at any point after this, as long as you give me a good Shirley memory. I will share the secret. And actually at that conference where she taught me that, there was one of the most poignant quotes from a patient with traumatic brain injury that I've carried with me ever since. And I think it reflects on some of the things that the family have said about Shirley being so aware of her decline in the later years. And that was a very simple quote from a patient that said, "I miss myself." Shirley weathered unimaginable loss and grief. Shirley and Ted were always the first people to call on my son Wesley's birthday at like 5 a.m. Shirley and Ted are the only people I've ever seen Bushman paintings with. We hiked in the Drakensberg Mountains, just the three of us, up and found a cave with Bushman paintings. It's a wonderful memory I have. Another snapshot that I always see when I think of Shirley is her always being there to welcome me and whoever came into her home. I can just see her standing there in her beautiful dress with her beautiful jewelry or a gorgeous pantsuit with her hands clasped in front of her just to welcome you. And I have these memories from my early childhood and way into adulthood. And the most recent time we visited was in Durban. And she always wanted us to go back, and unfortunately we never could. Shirley always asked after the whole family, each person by name, wanting to know how all the Newmarks were doing. She was ever ready to offer advice, sympathy, and empathy as needed and appropriate. There are so many wonderful memories to think about, and therefore there is so much to miss. I attended the funeral of a friend of mine, and her brother said something that really struck me. And that was, he said that although his parent had given him so much, the one thing he hadn't given him was the ability to live without him. And I know that was said in grief at the moment, and it just made me think that in having so many beautiful memories, so much love and so much wisdom to share, I think that's exactly what Shirley has taught us, is how to live without her. I wish you all long life.
Thank you. Thank you for those beautiful memories and for sharing them, Jessica. Max Shapiro.
Hi, everyone. I should start my video. 1 second. Hi, everybody. Today has been a very, very special day for Sylvia and I, sitting and listening to these wonderful tributes about late Shirley. Sylvia and I were always privileged, and we always felt blessed that both Ted and Shirl played such a big part in our lives, even though the distances were there. because we looked up to Ted and Shirley as being genuine people who were interested in everybody and who listened and cared. Most of our conversations and a lot of our conversations revolved around family values, because we're also part of a family, which was, to tell you those who don't know, my late father and Annie Tollman were first cousins. So there's this bond, and the love has been perpetuated for generations. And when I look, even though I'm a little bit older than Steve, Peter, and Lisa, I can see in you three guys, your parents, not only looks-wise, but that genuineness that you have. Excuse me, I'm a blubberer, but it's a Shapiro, it's a tray in our family. But today really moves me, and I know it moves all our family, because we've all lost very, very special people, and Shirley's passing now adds to what we felt when Ted went. We wish you long life, and we will always cherish the memories we had, especially when Shirley came to Sylvia and I in Neisner a few times, and we spent a wonderful week together in Neisner, just reminiscing and listening. She listened and gave advice. And that love and caring we will miss and we will cherish, and we wish you all long life. God bless you all.
That's beautiful, Max. Thank you. Mike Hershowitz, were you wanting to say something? Mike? Anyone else like to share any thoughts?
May I get in very quickly, please?
Of course, Minnie.
I have a family Zoom half an hour ago, every Sunday afternoon, so they're waiting for me. But I definitely wanted to be with you all and to say I've known Ted and Shirley for more than 50 years. It's been a wonderful friendship. I agree with all the tributes everyone has made. We met in Durban when we came up from Margate, and 6 years later we moved to London. We had a memory of them in London and in Switzerland and in South Africa, and they will always be close to my heart. And I wish you all long life, and I wish that you will be well as long as you live. Thank you.
That's a wonderful wish, Minnie. Thank you. You look fantastic. Stephanie and Victor.
Hi, Stephen, Peter, and Lisa. I wish you long life. As you know, Shirley meant a lot to me. Not only was she there when I needed her and needed her support, I was there for her as well. And not only that, but she was a role model for me in my profession. I'm not going to forget Shirley. She will leave an indelible mark on my life. And I hope to continue being in contact with the whole lot of you, because I do love you, as Shirley did. Thank you.
Thanks. We all love you too, Stephanie.
I see Ellen Lauderman's waving her hand.
Ellen.
Peter, I'm sorry I lost you. I lost you earlier.
Okay.
It's Michael Hershowitz. I send you love and wish you long life. I was pleased to be one of the few representatives at Shirley's funeral, still living in Durban. I loved that lady. She was the most precious, beautiful woman, and we had our own very special bond. I will miss her tremendously. Our families were always together on Yontavim in the days when we were all growing up in Durban. And I certainly, this has been the most fantastic experience to hear everybody talking about this wonderful lady. We were so blessed to have had her for as long as we did. May you all be blessed. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. We saw you by video. there. Ellen. You muted, Ellen.
Okay, I think everyone's muted.
There we go.
Are we good now?
We're good.
Okay. When Brian and Lisa got married, I just wanted to say that your parents just incorporated into our family. They were so friendly, and it was just like a natural thing to happen. And every time your mom would come, we always got together, and it was such a joy and a pleasure. We would go off somewhere and have lunch or something. But what I really am sitting here watching is all the grandchildren speaking. When I met the grandchildren, they were kids. And I just want to say that they have grown up so beautifully, and they were speaking so beautifully. And Shirley is in all of them, and I hope they realize that. That's it.
Thank you, Ellen. That's a beautiful thought. Anyone else?
Can I say something, Peter?
Of course, Ezra.
Okay. You know what? I just want to pay tribute to all of you. Ted and Shirley were very special. I loved them. And I think that all the tributes which you have all paid to them really did justice to them both, especially to Shirley, of course. This was our most memorable experience for me, especially listening to grandchildren crying. That to me was the most eloquent tribute to her. But all of you, I mean, everything you said was wonderful. And I think a very fitting tribute to her. And I wish you all long life and comfort in the years ahead.
Thank you, Ezra. It's beautiful.
Peter, it's Robin Weinstein. Can I just say something?
Hi, Robin.
My mom and my sister unfortunately couldn't wait up. It's 12:35 here. For my sister, it means it's 2:35. But they both asked that I please remember them to all of you. We wish you long life. We also have many, many shared memories going back a long way. 35 years, wow, I was at your wedding. Yeah, Steve and Kathy. Lisa, I don't know, you're not on my screen at the moment. Oh, there you are. And I haven't spoken to you either. I'll speak to you during the week. But special love from this branch of the Beer family, from so very far away. And Shirley was an amazingly special woman. I was fortunate to see her fairly recently, the last time I was in Durban. And we shared a long relationship together, and she will be very, very sadly missed. As I've said to all of you, she had an elegant, fashionable in her own way, highly intelligent, very warm, very loving, very comforting at all times. And one always tended to have deep and meaningful relationships with her because I think she was just kind of like that. And she was always, always very inclusive. And yeah, we love her. My 91-year-old mother said to me today, you know, darling, maybe if you come here, I will stay up. She said, for Shirley, it's worth it. But sorry, I sent her to bed. So love from all of us, and wish you all long life.
Thank you so much, Robin, and sorry for timing it this way for those of you in Australia.
Somebody's going to catch it overseas. Yeah.
Yeah. Anton.
Hi, I just want to say a few words as well. From one level down in the family tree out here in San Diego, it's just wonderful to see my cousins. You know, we're sort of, as my mom said, we're one generation off. And so while she is first cousins with Peter and Stephen and Lisa, they're closer to us in age in the Monk family. And we grew up almost like, we'd like first cousins, feeling like we were living in their incredible home in Durban. And Auntie Shirley and Uncle Ted were an ever-present part of our lives, like my mom said, all the simchas. And we just wonderful to see everyone. We have such great memories of her. I'd say one of my funniest memories of Auntie Shirley was when I was in South Africa a few years ago. And it was one of the most frightening moments of my life. She took me driving. And as anyone who knew her knows, she drove the slowest person on the road. She would anticipate when a green light was going to turn red. So she took me out drinking, actually. That was really fun. And like I said, just such incredible memories of Auntie Shirley and Uncle Ted. And thank you to them for giving us the opportunity to be part of their lives and to be part of their children's lives.
Thanks, cousin.
Hi, Peter. May I say something, please?
Go ahead.
It's Barbara and Aubrey in Toronto, and we just want to, of course, send our love and condolences to all of you, but also want to remember the visit that Ted and Shirl and all of you paid to Toronto. You were very young in those days, and so were our children, but that closeness that the family developed through your parents, through Auntie Anne, through the beers, through all those years in Durban, somehow we've been able to carry it through to our generation. And I hope that our children will also somehow find a way to keep this amazing family that we have and keep close and understand who they come from and who they are, because we are very special. And every time there's a family Zoom, it gives us an opportunity with this new technology to really stay together, because none of this existed when we left South Africa. And yet somehow, because the bond's so tight and so strong, we did keep together, and we are still there for each other. And we love you all, and we send love, and we're going to miss your mom and dad and all the other members of the family that are no longer with us. So take care, and if you ever come to Toronto, any of the family, please find us and let's get together. And we send love.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you too. And we look forward to being able to travel across.
Yeah. Okay.
Gabi, yeah, of course.
Wow. I am missing my auntie. I am just Tamara's son. My memory, my auntie, so good to last time I see her, my almond. I'm so lucky as I can take to Shirley, the best friend, and my memories. I have a picture I want to show you. Look, I miss so much. Lucky and Shirley and Ted and Lisa and Peter, everybody. I'm lucky, but so much I have all of you, and I miss so much everybody. And Lisa, I just hear so much news. I think maybe 29, 26 years. And I miss her so much. And your father, Ted, is so best friend I had. And when you come, my wedding, I'm so happy to see them, my wedding. And I'm so happy. We're sorry that Tollman family Israel Merci, Jesus.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Gabi. Love to you too. Lisa Bizansky, did you want to add your thoughts? Lisa? No. Perhaps Sandy, I know you had your hand raised.
Hi, this is Alan and Sandy. They speak from Oxford. We've known Steve, Kathy, Simon, Emma, and Izzy for many, many years, and they've always been the warmest of warmest friends. And they've always shown such generosity and humanity to all of us, to our family. And then when we met Shirley and Ted, we kind of realized where this might have come from. Such warm and lovely people. And then occasionally through my trips to Durban, I saw Shirley, and it was almost as if we'd known her all our lives. She was always welcoming us, always generous, and almost as if we were kind of other children. And we're very grateful for that, and we'll remember her forever. And we've really appreciated this really fantastic tribute to a very, very special person. Thank you.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Wayne Nichols.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can hear you well,
okay.
Wayne.
Okay,
Oops. Not anymore.
There we go. How about now? Better?
Now it's good, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to learn more about your wonderful mom and your family. And I just want to say one more thing. Peter's a biking friend of mine. And oftentimes when he rides up the hill ahead of me, I now understand where he gets his strength and his endurance, and also his character. So thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this. And Peter, I just want to say this, it's a very unfair advantage, but thanks again. Take care.
Thank you, Wayne. It is an unfair advantage.
Yes.
But I ain't giving it away. It's good to see you.
Thanks.
Anne, I wanted to say something.
Thanks, Peter. First of all, love and condolences to all of you, and thank you for sharing this wonderful tribute to your mom and celebration of her remarkable life. In fact, in debating whether to say something, I remembered one of the many wisdoms she imparted to me over the years, which was whenever you're in an event or meeting, say something, don't keep quiet. So in tribute to one of the many wisdoms she imparted to me, I will say something. She was a true force, as you know, and I am extremely privileged to have known her as a student, a colleague, and a friend. Shirley, as I think we've said, played a pivotal role in the development of neuropsychology in South Africa, as well as of the transformation of psychology, which started out as a purely white discipline post-apartheid into a more representative one in this country. She thrived on her collaborative networks and work with both her students and colleagues. And I think this is very much a hallmark of her life, but it was also part of the cornerstone of her success in academics and in her profession. She had many firsts in her career. She did the first ever neuropsychology conference in South Africa. She brought the first international neuropsychology to the country. She was also at the forefront of the fight to get neuropsychology recognized as a specialist category of registration in South Africa. And it was very fitting, in fact, that I learned of her passing during the first ever neuropsychology board exam that is currently taking place in South Africa, because the register is finally being opened. And this is perhaps another tribute to Shirley, because 35 years ago, she was one of the people at the forefront of this battle to get neuropsychology recognized. Just to know that I will forever value the mentorship I had from her, the many wisdoms and lessons learnt, and that if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have succeeded with many of the things I have in my life. And with some of my successes, she was always my first phone call to thank her for her mentorship and guidance over the years. So I will never forget her. And as I say, condolences and love to all of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anne. You were a huge part of her professional life. So that's lovely to hear. Eva and John wanted to say something.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, Eva, we can hear you now.
Okay, so of course I wish the, sorry, I'm Eva, I'm the wife of John Kahn, who is the brother of Kathy, and therefore Kathy and Steve are part of our family, and that's my connection as well. So we wish the family a long life, as is customary to say. And I just wanted to say that I've been very much on the periphery of the extended Kahn Tollman, especially the Tollman family. And my memories of Shirley are mostly to do with these great clan get-togethers at places like, you know, these holiday places like Cathedral Peak and Champagne Castle and all these other poetically named locations. And so, you know, just having this opportunity to speak, to have these intense intellectual conversations with Shirley, that was just an amazing bonus, you know, to speak to another, I think also from a feminist perspective, to speak to a woman who was engaged in intellectual pursuits, and learning about her work, learning about psychology. That was fabulous. It was mostly sort of snatched moments of conversation. And so what I'd like to voice here, which perhaps other people also know about, is Shirley envy, which is this feeling that, well, you know, I'm not really part of the family, so I just have to snatch the moments when it is possible to have these wonderful conversations with her. So yes, so fond memories and, you know, grateful feelings for having known Shirley at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Eva. But I do have to say, we do think of you as really part of the family. Trevor. Trevor, you're muted.
Hi, guys. Yes, excuse me. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you well.
Okay, good. I just want to wish you all long life and just let you know, yes, I had to walk the dogs on the beach, and that's, I'll just shake the dogs instead of my face. Everything that comes out of the Tollmans, just, you know, they've embraced me. Of course, Mern's my elder sister, was like a surrogate daughter for Shirley, and that's how, and Ted, everybody is, you guys all feel like you are family. You feel just, it's so close. You bring me close and tolerate this crazy little kid that has to take over. And so keep the courage, keep the faith, keep leading me along the right path. And Lisa, Daniel, Jenna, Brian, thank you for keeping me in the loop, and I love you guys, and long life to you all, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Trevor. Makey.
And that's the beach. There's the background. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's the doggies.
Thank you. Makey?
Yeah. Thank you for arranging it. For me, being with your mother and your father, it was always a healing experience. It was always a positive experience. It was something always that I went out with more strength than I came into. And I am saying it as a kid, 5 years old, having great memories being with all of you in your home and driving in your special car in Durban, and along the years, as much as we saw each other not so often, but always it was meaningful, and it was always such a positive experience. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for arranging this Zoom event, and I want to wish all of you all the best.
Lovely, Mike. I still remember when you came to Durban as a family and you had a huge mop of hair on your head.
True.
Anyone else? Paul.
Hi. So I have no choice after that introduction from Makey. I have to show that I'm part of the family. And I also had a huge mop of hair on my head once upon a time as well. I'm Cecil and Marcia's son. And yeah, everything that I wanted to say has been said, but it's worth saying it again. And I want to just start with my memories of Shirley, even though my memories are mainly from young childhood. They were significant because I don't think it changed over the years. Shirley was always, and Uncle Ted as well. I think what struck me most about both of them was the undivided attention that they always gave everybody. It was their form of love that is very hard to describe, but it was really felt as exactly that. Always had time, always so patient. Somebody spoke about Shirley's sparkling smile. I think that really says it. Her eyes, she smiled with her eyes, and full of fun, adventure. Most of my memories, because it was from childhood, were when we were adventuring. It was usually on holidays or at barbecues or at Yom Tovim, as some of you pointed out. And Shirley was full of adventure. I mean, the most recent memory was when I was back in Durban. We went out on a little holiday together just for a weekend to some game reserve. And she really lapped up every moment, and she enjoyed it so much, just like a little girl. Even though at the time she was well into her 70s, I was so impressed. And then kindness. I'm talking here, my mom isn't able to be with us on this call today, but I'd like to represent her and just share with you some of the things she said. It's her birthday today, by the way, it's her 89th birthday. And I think she didn't feel strong enough to come on this call today because she said it would be just too much for her. She saw Shirley as her sister. Some of the in-laws said Shirley never saw them as her daughter-in-law and son-in-law, some of you guys said, and same with mom. Mom and her were like sisters. They were sisters-in-law, but they were like real sisters. And when mom was just telling me a little story a few days ago, when she heard the news and she was in tears about when she had one of the hardest days in her life, and she was very much on her own. And the next day, Shirley and Ted took her for the day for a picnic, and how much that meant to her. That little small act of kindness that meant so much to her on that particular day. So I'm sure that Mama will be happy that I shared that story with all of you because it meant so much to her. And it really does epitomize the kind of person Shirley was. And of course, Uncle Ted as well, who we all miss so much. So I wish you all long life from here in Ireland and blessings, and may God grant you strength as you grieve over the coming days, weeks, and months. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Those are beautiful memories. David wanted to say something.
Hi, everybody. David Monk, the youngest of the monks, but third in line of bald men speaking, so figured I'd just follow suit. I have such an unbelievable amount of love for the Tollman family, and everybody knows that we are from a large family, and fortunately we never had to all be good at math. We just had to know that we were cousins. removed or who was connected to whom. And pretty much if we went back far enough to Granny Annie, any of the several hundred family members, we could just say, you know, Granny Annie, okay, this is the connection. If you just go back far enough, then people felt the comfort. Auntie Shirley knew every scrape, every cut, every bruise, every stitches story that I had growing up, and treated me like a son. I mean, the memories of driving up that long driveway up to 136 Chelmsford Road, just covered with trees. It was going into another world. And that world for me was one of love and warmth and authenticity. And there were many stories today about how wonderful a woman she was, but just a couple anecdotes from my side. One expects their mom to show up for musicals and for tennis tournaments, but Auntie Shirley used to show up too. And I would just be amazed that she knew that I was playing a match on a certain day or singing in a certain whatever, and she would show up. And I feel very blessed to not have just one example of an Eshet Chayil in our line of the family tree with Granny Annie, Granny Razel, but in blessed memory, Auntie Shirley was a true Eshet Chayil. And I want to wish you, Steve, Peter, Lisa, and everybody, long life, lots of love, and brilliant memories of your mom. May she always be used for a blessing, and lots of love to you all.
Thanks, Dave. Johnny.
Hi, it's Johnny Penkin here. I hope you can hear me. I guess my claim to fame is I'm Annie Tollman's great grandson and Razel and Len Hershowitz's grandson. You know, I grew up in Cape Town, so I was slightly separate growing up to the rest of the family, but I used to come every summer to Durban. And as I think Alish once said, it was a bit like coming to the television show Dallas. Used to come with these amazing houses, these amazing people. They had great cars as well, just by the way, but that's a separate issue. And as a young kid, you were overawed by meeting so many family. And when I think back to coming to Chelmsford Road, the first thing that struck you was the amazing house, the air, the fans. There was just this amazing spirit and feeling in the house. And look, the reality is I was just one of many grand cousins, etc. But I always felt exceptionally welcome. And it was as if both, I can't say Ted and Shirley, Uncle Ted and Auntie Shirley, went out of their way kind of to make us feel welcome, these cousins from Cape Town. And this carried on from when I was very young until until recently. The thing I really want to say was twofold. What struck me most about this incredible Zoom call now is how the children and the grandchildren, the spouses of Uncle Ted and Auntie Shirley, have taken on and are just as amazing. Because what struck me about them, firstly, was they were incredibly bright people, incredibly smart, but also incredibly warm, incredibly thoughtful about the family. The effort you've gone to today, and I know there's COVID and I know we do this, but lots of people don't do things like this, is amazing. And while I feel the loss, and I remember feeling the loss of your dad, I'm happy. I feel so much warm myself by looking at the screen now and seeing Peter and Linda and Stephen and Kathy. And I was in Johannesburg earlier this year, and unfortunately I had to have quite a big operation, but I'm absolutely fine. And Stephen and Kathy were absolutely there for me every minute of the time in hospital. And so guys, I know it's an incredibly hard time for you. You've lost someone who is special, and it's fine, special for lots of us, but incredibly special for you. But know that you're continuing that. Both you, the children, and you, the grandchildren, by what you've said today, you give us, a family, the feeling that the family continues, and the spirit and the memory of Ted and Shirley continues. I wanted to say one other thing, and then I'll shut up. That was to thank Florence. Florence, you could have said a lot of things. You took the view that you wanted to speak in the name of Auntie Shirley. And for us, that just meant an incredible amount, because it was as if the person we're talking about was there, you were telling us about her. So I thank you, we thank you, and we thank you for all you've done for such an important member of the family. And all I can say is I hope that those of us kind of still remaining in the family will see each other and will continue the spirit that we are so blessed by having, the great grandmother we share, and the brothers and the sisters, and the sister that we had. So thank you again for arranging this. It's incredibly important, and I wish you all long life.
Thanks, Johnny. That's beautiful. Paul Kaplan.
Oh, sorry. Am I unmuted?
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. It's a pity, unfortunately, that my parents, due to COVID, are not able to be part of this. Ernest and Estelle, they certainly, I would have been there, but due to the circumstance of this COVID, I couldn't. We socially distancing, unfortunately. But I know that they have had a very special place in their hearts for Ted and Shirley, not least because they got married exactly one day after your parents. Obviously live in Cape Town, we didn't see Ted and Shirley that often, but the few times, and recently when I was in Durban, what struck me is the incredible warmth, the grace, the obvious talent of the whole family, but coupled with that, the amazing humility of all of you. And even though we, dispersed all over the world, we've always had this close bond. Certainly with the children. I mean, Lisa, I certainly spent quite a bit of time with in Cape Town. Peter and Linda, more recently, we see often. Just your parents' legacy lives on in you, and it's clear that that what they've achieved lives on in you, and just wishing you from us long life, and what a wonderful tribute this has been to your mom.
Thanks, Paul, and please give our best love to your parents.
Well, we'll do. Certainly.
They were like parents to me when I came to UCT.
Yes, and please God, we'll see a lot more of you when this crisis ends.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from anyone? Robin. Robin, you're still muted.
There we go. Are you talking, Miss Robin, or the other? Oh, that Robin. Hello, Robin. Other Robin.
You have to excuse me. My head is very jumbled. I have so many memories and so many thoughts. It's difficult to sift them all out one from the other and arrange them in a coherent manner. But first of all, I just want to wish you all, Lisa, Stephen, Peter, long life. It's wonderful to see you. And this Zoom meeting is just a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much. I'll keep it very short because so many people have raised memories and images that are mine as well, that I won't go into them again. But I think for me, the magic of Shirley and Ted, they go together like peanut butter and jelly and socks and shoes. It's almost impossible for me to separate them out, since I knew them when I lived in Durban and visited in Durban, and they were together. So for me, the magic of Chelmsford Road was not only the feeling that you got when you entered into that long shaded drive into the house, but also once you got in, there was the magic of the people that your mom and dad had created such a warmth in that wonderful home that went together. That warmth was unique, that went so well together with the uniqueness of the aesthetic that your mom and dad typified. So much so, I was so taken with it that I have in my home today so many things that I saw in your home when I was a little girl. One of them in particular, which is the one I want to address, is they had, and I don't know whether it's still in the house, they had a lamp made by, designed by Isamu Noguchi. And I love that lamp with a passion. And when I saw one that I was able to find for myself, I bought it. And every single time I turn on that lamp, for me, the light that shines out is Ted and Shirley. And they're with me. That lamp goes on every night in our home, and they're with me every single night. And as I also just want to end by saying that, as Jessica said earlier, Ted and Shirley and my mom and dad, Alec and Shirley Newmark, were also kind of sewn together from the time they were 4 or 5 years old. And they're now all together. And that makes me very, very happy. They're all together once again with all the other members of the family. Thank you, and wish you long life again.
Thanks so much, Robin. That Noguchi lamp is still there and it still gives great light, although I've got to tell you, it's showing signs of age. But it's still there, standing proud.
Yeah.
Great.
Great.
Okay. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken who would like to say something? Sydney? No.
Hi. Hi.
Hi, Stella, you're on.
Yes, hi. You know, this has been such an incredible experience, and our friendship was in Durban. It was now 41 years ago. Unfortunately, you left Shirley, and we went back once, and she welcomed us into her home, into their home, and everything has been said about Shirley that I just, whatever the truth has come out, and she was such an amazing human being. But I feel everything has been said, and I endorse everything. But the one thing they didn't really say was her humility, her modesty, all her wonderful qualities, which shone out from her beautiful person. And she was also so sweet and modest and giving and wonderful and humble. And I just want to wish you all lots of good health and a long life of good health. And we send our love to you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Stella. Would anybody else like to say anything? Anybody else?
Okay, well, any members of the family like to say a few last words? And then what we'll do before we hang up is we'll show that wonderful slideshow again that was prepared by Brian with help from Kathy and Linda.
Pete, maybe I'll just say a word if I may. Just to thank all of you for your presence, for your warmth, for your support, and your beautiful words, written, spoken. They really help us solidify the treasure that we've had, that we've lost, and that actually will stay with us. And we send you all lots of love, and hope that maybe some of the connections that we've made now on the Zoom, with the silver linings of COVID, as Peter started with, is that these connections have been made stronger. So we send all our love.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lee. Steve, Kathy?
Thanks to all. Only to echo and add to what Lisa's just said, Peter, and a whole series of moving and thoughtful, very generous comments also on the chat, which have streamed in, and to acknowledge all of the sense that has been shared with Peter, with Lisa, with me, and our families across generations. Really very generous, but I think it helps us to look forward. People respond to spirituality in different ways, but this is the end of 7 days of Shiva. And I think you've all contributed, whether you've spoken or not, whether you sent a chat or not. You've all contributed, and we know there are others who could not make it, to a renewal and a invigoration, yes, of the ties that bind us all. But I think Pete, Lisa, and all of us will agree that in doing so, you're strengthening all of us. And we look forward in different ways to building the future of our family and our family together with you. So thanks. And I'll hand back to Peter.
I just want to thank you in the same way as Lisa and Steve did. This has been just an incredible couple of hours. It's so helpful to us. This is the community that's most important to us in our lives and with whom we have the greatest legacy. And thank you for making it what it's been and helping make it a new beginning. And we all look forward to being in touch and to building on it and building on the network of relationships, which is so incredibly strong. I'm going to play the video now. I want to wish you all long life and hope that we can meet again soon in post-COVID times.
There's something in the way she moves, or looks my way or calls my name, that seems to leave this troubled world behind. And if I'm feeling down and blue, or troubled by some foolish game, she always seems to make me change my mind. I feel fine anytime she's around me now. She's around me now, almost all the time. And if I'm well, you can tell that she's been with me now. She's been with me now quite a long, long time, and I feel fine. every now and then the things I lean on lose the meaning, and I find myself careening in places where I should not let me go. She has the power to go where no one else can find me, yes, and to silently remind me of the happiness and good times that I know. Well, I said I just got to know them. It isn't what she's got to say, or how she thinks, or where she's been. To me, the words are nice, the way they sound. I like to hear them best that way. It doesn't much matter what they mean. Well, she says they're mostly just to calm me down. I feel fine anytime she's around me now. She's around me now, almost all the time. If I'm well, you can tell that she's been with me now. She's been with me now quite a long, long time. Yes, and I feel fine. clinging warm. Look at the flowers and the green grass so tall. It's not a matter of when push comes to shove. It's just the hour on the wings of a dove. That's just warm love. It's just warm love. I dig it when you're fancy dressed up in lace. I dig it when you have a smile on your face. This inspiration's got to be on the floor. These invitations got to see it and know it's just warm love. It's just warm love. And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. Warm love. And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. That warm love. To the country we're going, laying life in the sun. You can bring your guitar along. We'll sing some songs and have some fun. The sky is crying and it's time to go home. And we shall hurry to the car from the phone. Sit by the fire and dry out our wet clothes. It's raining outside from the skies up above. Inside it's warm love. Inside it's warm love. And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. That warm love. And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. That warm love. Can you feel it? And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. That warm love. Hey. And it's ever present everywhere. And it's ever present everywhere. That warm love. Hold on to me as we go, as we roll down this unfamiliar road. And although this wave is stringing us along, just know you're not alone. 'Cause I'm gonna make this place your home. Settle down.